The views and opinions expressed by the guests, callers, and hosts on this and all Rense Radio Network programs do not necessarily reflect or agree with those of the network, its commercial sponsors, its radio station affiliates, or internet broadcast platforms. In these controversial times, we believe the First Amendment and freedom of the press are absolutely essential to the survival of our nation. Thank you. And now, enjoy the program.
Okay, welcome back. Glad you're along tonight. Hope you had a good day. As I say, if you didn't, most of us will have a chance to do better tomorrow. Doom and gloom. A lot of people complain about that, saying all we ever hear is doom and gloom. Political, military, social, and certainly economic. And if you want to read some doom and gloom, go to any of the major precious metals sites. I mean, it's really amazing. It almost seems as if every financial and economic machine of any status at all, including precious metals, seems to be some kind of leverage scam or outright Ponzi scheme now. Of course, they're all, at some point or another, geared to the oldest game in town. It is the usury game, and I say we are not going to any FEMA camps. We're already in camp. I call it Camp Usury. Meantime, the insane Dow Jones Industrials, 15,215 up, a rather robust 123 on the day. And this is really Looney Tunes, folks. It's crazy. Gold is lurking around 14.15, 14.30, something rare. It's still a buy, according to everyone who's in it. There are some remarkable stories on the metals sites. Richard Russell, who has been at this for a long, long time, says we are witnessing unprecedented events. And he's right. They are unprecedented. They're unique. They're kind of off the wall. It's wild. Here's another one. King World News. The move to global hyperinflation is now accelerating. You can read all day long and see nothing but darkness in their stories and headlines. Here's another one. How a criminal syndicate of banks is raping the gold market. Hey, these stories are endless. Well, here's a friend of ours who took a very major hit in the financial game and fortunately was able to recover, unlike the people who invested in Lakey Bank in Cyprus and the Bank of Cyprus, or at least those folks at the Bank of Cyprus are going to get something back. But it's pretty wild out there. Gerald, how are you?
Very well. Thanks for having me on, Jeff.
My pleasure. What do you think about all this stuff?
Well, the markets are being rigged. I mean, they rigged the LIBOR rate, the interest rates, and that's to the tune where they rigged some, $500 trillion in terms of what they did. And so that's not a conspiracy theory. It's a fact.
Right.
And they're rigging the bond market in front of our eyes. The Federal Reserve is buying $85 billion, continuing to add up what they've already had in bonds and government-backed securities. So they're rigging it, and they're rigging the stock market, as we know, with hyper trading and other ways of manipulating the market. Those things aren't high frequency trading.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a fantasy. It's a fact.
Yeah.
And it is. And then you go back to when the gold market started to unravel in mid-April. All of a sudden, there was a sudden appearance of an unprecedented 400 tons of short sale of gold on the COMEX
mm-hmm.
in April.
Mm-hmm.
And that's Dr. Paul Craig Roberts, of course, who's a former Assistant Treasury Secretary
mm-hmm.
under Ronald Reagan, who's one of the contributors to the Trends Journal. You know, he's written about it in detail,
yes,
both in the Trends Journal and on his site, paulcraigroberts.org. And it's designed to protect the dollar from all of this quantitative easing. And what you're looking at, Jeff, this is going on around the world, and that's why I believe it hasn't crashed yet, because they're all doing it. Japan,
they are. It's right in our face. Look,
yeah.
They're not. This is, and you've heard this for years. Whenever we present evidence of a real conspiracy, the idiots out there and those who are working for the other side always say, conspiracy theory. No, it's conspiracy fact. It's all being run by conspiracy. All of it. Show me one that isn't, please, folks.
Exactly. And again, these are facts. These aren't, hidden behind closed doors. These are reports that everybody that reads anything knows about. And so when you're looking at it and understanding that, as I said, Japan has devalued their currency against the dollar 15% since December.
Mm-hmm.
And Vietnam's lowered their interest rate. Israel yesterday lowered their interest rate. Australia's lowering their interest rate. It's a currency war, and they're going to keep this up. And who knows? Maybe someday they'll short another 400 tons of gold. But here's the reality: the paper market and the hard asset market are two very different markets. And as you're looking around the world, they're buying up gold at record levels, the hard asset, the hard currency. The jewelers are buying it up. The people are waiting online up to almost a half mile long when this thing first started to unravel. And there's shortage. As you mentioned, going to the websites of the precious metal dealers. There's shortages of everything. Even the government is running out of coins,
right.
the small ones that they're printing. So this is very different. I don't know if I mentioned this on your show before, but as you know, I've been buying gold. My first buy of gold was in 1978 at $187.50
mm-hmm.
an ounce.
Mm-hmm.
And I also bought, Jeff, on the highest point in the trading day when it crashed at $8.75 on January 20th,
mm-hmm.
1980. And I could tell you this is a very different time and a very different emotion. You go back then, for example, the silver market was manipulated by the Hunt brothers. This is 1980.
Yeah, I remember.
All right. Now, in 1980, there was no Russia. It was the Soviet Union, and everything east of the Berlin Wall was locked behind it. There was no China. Was China like ranked number 16th or something in the world economy?
Exactly.
Now they're number 2.
Right.
All anybody knew about China was Mao. And India, who knew anything about India? The people used to New Age people went there to meet a guru or something.
That's exactly right.
And they heard about Gandhi, who died, years earlier.
And the Maharishi.
Yeah, that's it. So what I'm saying is, it wasn't a global economy back then. The Americans were trading, some Europeans. It wasn't the same thing. There's not that panic right now. I am in gold for the long term. I do not trade gold. I buy gold. So when I buy it for my golden years. And you were talking about how the stock market is booming. The stock market now is almost, when adjusted for inflation, where it ended its high in 2007. That's 5 years later.
Huh.
Now let's look at gold. It's more than doubled in price during the same 5 years.
Yes, it has.
So what's So who and they're down and they're downplaying gold. So this is a very different time. Again, this is the global age, and it wasn't back in 1980 when I was trading.
You always, I'm hearing, if I'm reading correctly between your words, took possession of your gold. The idea of paper gold is nuts. I don't understand anybody investing anything in paper gold. I never did. I never will. You buy the gold, you better damn well be able to put your hands on it. Isn't that kind of a good rule of thumb, Gerald?
It is. And as I learned from the MF Global takedown, they robbed my segregated account. What I do is I used to buy futures, and I would take delivery on it. And so I kept putting money in to take delivery on the future. And
I remember.
The future never came. The other thing to understand with this is also the Cyprus incident. To me, that was a test case. How much could they get away with?
Absolutely.
And they got away with everything.
They sure did. Lakey is gone. The Bank of Cyprus will be sued. I know somebody who lost quite a bit in there, 900,000 euros, I think. And they are supposedly going to give everyone who had over 100,000 max in return. Well, this person is trying to do a class action suit against them because Bank of Cyprus is not broke. It did have assets. But there are some real strange things going on there, as you know, and most of you listening know. The Russians obviously had an inkling, shall we say. A lot of money left Cyprus the day before it was pilfered and taken down. But again, I go back to these headlines on the precious metals pages. They're wild. I'll read a couple more when we come back with Gerald Celente. Trends in just a minute. Okay, back with Gerald. I was kind enough to stop by once a month for an hour visit, and we always learn a lot. It's great to get your perspective, as always. You have been there and done it, and you're the real deal, as I used to say. Here's some more of these headlines. Mark Faber, who's fairly well known, I guess, amongst the metals folks, says something will break very bad. Jim Sinclair, free gold and the end game. Here's another one. Disappearing gold, financial collapse, and the Fed. And here's one for a little afterthought. Bill Gross says, never have investors reached so high in price for so low a return. Never have investors stooped so low for so much risk. I mean, you get the spin here. I am not seeing too many the dollar is about to crash stories lately, because I don't think the dollar is going anywhere. I think it's a lot of hot air. They're going to keep it around, as long as they want it to be around, and that's just the bottom line. They control everything now. And if you folks haven't figured that out now, welcome to the program. Keep listening over the next few weeks, and you will figure it out. There is nothing left to chance. And if anything shows up on their radar, that appears to have any potential for challenging them in any way, at any level, any kind of clout, and I could cite the Tea Party as a perfect example, it is immediately marked for penetration and takeover. They own it all, folks, and if anything pops up, it's theirs. Remember the Tea Party, Gerald? Everyone was, oh boy, oh boy. They had their first national convention. Who was the keynote speaker? This is to show you how independent the Tea Party was. Sarah Palin. Yeah, well, there you go. So, I mean, again, we are living in an age of abject conspiracy where everything is planned, and if it's not planned and pops up, it is taken over, it is controlled, and believe it, if anybody steps out of line, they're dealt with. It's very simple.
I'm afraid you're right. And, nothing has really, nothing has really changed, from when the Goths and the Visigoths.
Good point.
The Vandals,
exactly.
Back then they used to call it pillage and rape.
Yeah.
And now it's, what do they call it now? Humanitarian missions to free people of brutal dictators and bring freedom and democracy.
Bringing democracy to the poor oppressed of the world. That means liquidating most of them through collateral damage.
Yeah, and stealing everything that they could steal.
Exactly. Look what we did in Iraq. We killed 2 to 3 million Iraqis, literally, physically tore that country to shreds. It is now a third world country where the sewage runs in some of the streets still. They don't have electricity 24/7. And their national heritage, which really was the heritage, a birthright of all human beings, was looted. The museum was robbed. We went in there, this country, not you and I, folks, but this government, this alleged government, went in there, of course, doing the bidding of others and international banksters, went into that country because Iraq has more oil than Saudi Arabia. Lots more. That was the big secret. Anyway, they went in there and they just destroyed this country. Nothing was done. Nothing. And they're trying to do the same in Syria. This interesting thing with Syria, Gerald, because the Russians clearly have been putting major effort behind the scenes to prop up Assad. And I say, bravo. I'm sick and tired of these Western bank perverts and pedophiles and rapists and looters and genocidal maniacs having their way, what they did in Libya and Iraq and all the rest of it. It looks like Hussein and his army and the people have rejected this constant influx of mercenary killers. The Brits announced today they were giving them another $67 million in armaments to go in there and oust Assad and to bring democracy to these people. The hell with that, and I hope the Russians step in. I hope they stay firmly, and I hope they put a stop to this. If they don't, it's kind of all over. I'm watching it very closely, as I'm sure you are.
Yeah, this whole thing, it's out of the news as well. A week ago, Israel attacked Syria.
Exactly.
I mean, it's out of the news.
Gone. And it may have been a small tactical nuke. That weapon had all the characteristics of at least a nuclear bunker buster. Not a fuel air explosive. This was something else. And it is said also that hundreds of the most elite troops in the Syrian military were turned into ashes instantly. Yep.
And that's out of the news. And of course, turn it around. Suppose, ostensibly, of course, it was that Israel attacked because Iran was sending them missiles that were going to end up in the hands of Hezbollah. That was the story, girls and boys.
Yeah.
And of course, let's turn it around. Let's say Syria attacked Israel because the United States sent it arms. No, you can't do that. That's only can do it one way. You can't attack the other way. You only can attack one way. And I have to tell you, we do Trends in the News each day, and it's part of the subscription to the Trends Journal. And today I just want
That's a wonderful subscription bonus, by the way, folks. This is Gerald serves it up like a 7-course meal. It's great.
Well, thanks. And I just went off the charts today. Reading Obama's about this Benghazi.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I said, who is this? There's Benghazi, al-Nusra, there's Al-Qaeda and Benghazi. Could anybody care about Benghazi if soldiers were killed? But you lose one ambassador. Stop the music. An ambassador got killed.
He wasn't an ambassador, by the way.
He wasn't even an ambassador, no. Right? But a consulate.
That's right.
But it's, hey, wait, he's one of them, This is a big deal. I read the dead coming out of Afghanistan, the American troops, when they list their names. Who cares about them? Nobody cares about them.
Nobody.
No, they didn't come from the right families. They didn't go to Harvard, Princeton, or Yale.
Not the bloodline, folks.
No, but boy, when an important person dies in Benghazi, Marlon, we got to do something. Who knew what, when? But wipe them out by the thousands in Vietnam and Iraq and Afghanistan. Who cares?
By the millions, actually. And
ours by the thousands.
Ours by the thousands. Theirs by the millions.
By the millions. But they don't even count. They're dark.
No. That's just little numbers here and there.
Yeah. They're not white like us.
No. All right. We'll come right back a couple of minutes with Gerald Celente, and I would urge you to visit his website and subscribe to the Trends Journal. It is it's truly unique on the planet. If you haven't gotten a copy, you need to get one. So just go there. It's real simple, trendsresearch.com, and you get that daily update, which is really a kick, and it's right on the money. Right back with you in just a couple. Okay, right back with you. You go to trendsresearch.com, you'll get a really nice presentation. I'm going to play the first minute of this, Gerald, because it's very concise and well done. You'll hear it, so turn your speakers up if you go there, and I hope you do go there. trendsresearch.com. Here's what you hear.
What you've been missing. The Trends Journal, the only place you get the facts.
Current events form future trends.
And the truth.
That's why I'm a political atheist.
And the trends.
Fast food, health food restaurants.
All in one place. For your seatbelts fastened for the stock market crash of '87?
He predicted the stock market crash of 1987.
The major media missed it. But world-class trends forecaster Gerald Celente predicted the crash months before it happened. In USA Today, Celente warned the world of a 9/11 scale attack and the panic of '08.
You predicted what, the dot-com bubble before it happened, the real estate bubble and the crash before it happened.
That's right.
Investing in gold, when gold was at $275 per ounce, Celente predicted the beginning of the gold bull run.
Watch gold. Gold prices could go to the stratosphere.
Dr. Celente, the truth surgeon, has been cutting to the bone with 32 years of cutting-edge and accurate trend forecasts, unrivaled in his profession.
Okay, there's more, but you get the idea. The Trends Journal, if it's not on your bedside nightstand, it certainly should be on your coffee table, assuming you sit on the sofa occasionally. Read it. Pass it around. That's important, and you get the daily news update, which is really fun. What time does that roll, Gerald? I guess it's archived all day.
Yeah, well, we put on at 6:30 at night. We try to every night. We shoot them afternoon, around 11:30, and then they work on them all day long.
Yeah,
there's nothing like it. I mean, I just can't believe people believe politicians anymore.
How do they?
I know.
How can they fall for that crap? Well, we might as well say what you said earlier. Politics and liars go all the way back to the Goths and the Visigoths. They've always been liars.
I mean,
all
how
of them.
could people believe this? These
I
bad
don't get
acts.
It. Now go ahead.
No. I mean, go on.
Here's another one. This is insane. The story today. This is a real story. The GOP is split over whether to waste time investigating Benghazi or waste time repealing Obamacare. This is an actual argument among these frauds and liars. All of them. Let me read a little bit. A deep divide has emerged within the Republican Party over whether to waste Congress's time investigating Benghazi in its talking points or revealing Obamacare to be the fraud that it is and to try to actually repeal it. Those were both confirmed by GOP lawmakers today. House Majority Leader Eric Cantor, another bright light, sounded the first discordant note at a press briefing this morning, telling reporters the time for wasting day after day investigating Benghazi is over. The American people are coming to us and counting on us to waste our time repealing Obamacare yet again. And these people are just talking gibberish. I mean, they're nuts. And the whole political system here is a fraud, as we've been telling you for years and years. In fact, in a few weeks, this program starts its 20th year. And I can look to no one other than Gerald Celente to have been right there at the leading edge, the front edge, at the crest of the wave all these years. So, again, I'm not pushing this too hard, but I just want you to be aware of the Trends Journal. It's that important. All right, Gerald, step up here and take a swing or two.
Well, first of all, thank you very much. And, I must say, there really isn't anything like the Trends Journal. I mean, it is history before it happened.
Oh, yeah.
When you read about what's going on and follow the news now about Benghazi and what they're talking about, you go back to our, I believe it was the Summer Trends Journal or the Autumn, the one with we had the lesser of two evils on it with the beautiful brilliant Anthony Freda illustration of these two characters, Obama and Romney, and made them look like evils, which they are. And we wrote in detail about this whole falling out in Libya, how it started, who said what, all of the facts. They're there concisely, and we said what would happen. And it's going on right in front of us. But this is really, it will prove to be a distraction because there's a lot worse coming down. Let's go back a little bit, and I remember the date well. It was April 19th. Certainly not ancient history. It's less than a month ago. And it was the pressure cooker bombs that went off a few days before that in the Boston Marathon. They closed down 100 square miles around Boston to go look for this 19-year-old kid. They had enough troops there to go through the Battle of the Bulge. And they had enough body armor and armaments and equipment to do it. And they went door to door to people's homes. No search warrants. Forcing people out of their homes. Hands up. And you see all these sloppy-looking fat cops with these pointing these guns at women holding
they really are.
Babies.
They're pigs. They really are pigs. And I don't want to insult pigs, but they were terrorizing these people.
And everybody applauding the Boston police. Hey, guess what? They didn't get their man. The way they got the kid, this 19-year-old kid,
exactly,
was this guy went outside after they lifted the state of siege. Shelter in place, the mayor says. Nobody can leave your home. We got an armed and dangerous criminal loose, and we're going to get him. And what do? They can't find him. So they call this thing off. The guy goes outside. The tarp on his boat's off. He looks in there, and there's this kid laying there lifeless. And they started up again. All the troops, the helicopters, the equipment ripping off the thing, throwing in stun grenades. And, of course, the news that came out was there was a face-off between the kid and the cops, and he was shooting at him.
It was a shootout. It was a firefight, a huge firefight.
That never happened. Now, remember they robbed the 7-Eleven. Well, that didn't happen either. Oh, and they found him with all these armaments. Well, they really didn't.
What armaments? I've yet to see a picture of a single weapon.
And you never saw the picture of the so-called knapsacks being left behind either.
No, sir. Exactly. This was really pathetic. Their great dragnet, as you eloquently pointed out, failed miserably. A citizen who was finally let go so he could leave his own home, Fourth Amendment, martial law, went out and noticed it. They surround the boat, an unarmed kid, and they knew it from the air. They had total thermal imagery of the guy. He had no weapons. They shot so many holes in the boat because dead men tell no tales, folks.
I remember he shot himself in his throat.
Yeah.
And it was a suicide attempt, I tell you.
Which,
you remember that one?
Yes. Which later on was described as a knife wound. All right. Now, the reason the kid wasn't slaughtered by the cops, who were claimed to have been using restraint, you saw the holes in the boat, folks. He was smart enough to lay next to the engine. There's probably a Merc 4-cylinder engine in there, an inboard-outboard boat. The engine block protected him, saved his life. Otherwise, he'd be dead. No complications. So what do? They take him immediately to the Jewish hospital, which was not the closest hospital, and two, I guess, dual citizen Israelis were his primary physicians. He was in the belly of the beast. They could make that kid dance on the head of a pin if they wanted to. The whole thing is disgusting. It thoroughly is disgusting. Be right back in just a minute. Okay, welcome back. Gerald said something earlier that, and I concur 100%, this whole Benghazi thing. Well, first of all, it is true that Hillary and all the rest of them have been caught in lie after lie, lies of omission. That's usually the way they do it. And I was able to run one story that showed that she wasn't even sworn in for her testimony, which apparently is true. So how culpable is she? Well, it's not relevant. This is really a non-issue. It's a non-starter. It's a misdirection. Where's the talk about the man who is occupying the Oval Office? Where's the talk about his right to be there? Where is his Columbia University transcript records? Where are the we know nothing about this guy. And the media, of course, owned and operated and controlled the whole damn thing by 6 corporations. They're in it, folks. They're running the show. You know that, or you wouldn't be listening to this program, and many of you wouldn't be subscribers to the Trends Journal, trendsresearch.com. You've got to stay informed. Your best bet to really make it, you're not going to take these people down. These are killers. And if they were really ever threatened with losing their control, I'm talking about the City of London Rothschild Zionist banking cartel, which runs everything. You trace it up far enough, that's where it goes. If they were ever really threatened, they would take the whole planet down before they give up their control. I believe that. I've said that for years. They'll kill everybody they need to, no problem whatsoever. Point is, there's nothing we can really do. We know the ballot box and going to your fax machine and faxing your congressman or congresswoman is an exercise in stupidity, if not futility, or both. So what do? We stay informed. And we help those who want to know. Now, unfortunately, there are less and less of those when you go down the food chain to the younger generations. But we do our best. We must, that's our obligation, to stay as well informed as we possibly can and not watch the CNN talking pukeheads on there, which is what they are, and liars, controlling the masses. And they are pros at this. It's not an amateur science anymore. It's a hardcore discipline. All right, enough of me. Your turn.
Well, yes and no, in the sense that the vacuum has never been greater than it is now, and it's so transparent. And you're talking about the media. You look at the numbers. People are tuning out of network TV like they were abandoning newspapers, after they said it wouldn't happen.
Thank goodness. Absolutely.
And now you're looking at the whole rise of the Internet. And some interesting things have happened. What we saw in Italy with Beppe Grillo and his 5-star movement, they got 25% of the vote. Mm-hmm. And that was more than any of the single parties. They had coalitions, of course, that brought them up to around 29, 30%. But he did it without going on one TV show.
Really?
He did it, yes. He did it all with the social media. He refused to go on with the prostitutes. Interesting. You're seeing it happening in England with Neil Farage. And he got 25% of the vote, too.
Yeah. United Kingdom Independent Party, UKIP.
Yes, UKIP, right. So I believe it can change. And you look at some of the data, some 2.4 million less young people voted for Obama this time than the last time. 2.5 million people, 2.5 million young people. So they were hip enough to see they got shafted and they weren't going to do that trip again. And when you mention the names of some of the people you were talking about, Eric Cantor, can you believe this little boy? He's a little boy.
Little punks.
Ryan, Paul Ryan, little boy. All of these guys, little boys, Reed, Boner, Well, they're boys. These aren't men.
No.
And so I believe it could be changed. And I believe it could be done spiritually, intellectually, and emotionally. And you being, I think we've mentioned this before, and you being a huge fan of opera, the Italians, Giuseppe Verdi, his passion, his goal for creating some of the, Rigoletto, Aida, some of the most famous operas of all time, he had one reason in his soul and one reason only as a young man, and that was to play that music and inspire it so the music would reach the soul and the heart of the people, and the Italians would overthrow the occupiers. And they did. It was nearly a bloodless revolution. And people forget that Italy in the 1800s, the Hungarians had a peace, the Germans had a peace, the French had a peace, the Austrians had a peace. The Neapolitans spoke a different language than the Calabrians. It worked. It worked. And I believe it could work again.
I like what you're saying. I hope you're right. I'd love to see it. And it's up to
the people. And that's what I did, Trends in the News. Today I went berserk. I said, don't keep writing me and asking me what to do. Use your damn head. And get some courage. Stand up. Speak out.
Yeah.
And don't take this crap from these officials. They call them official, and there's another word that goes in front of it. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah.
And that's all they are, officials. Official. Come on, what are you kidding me? So no, I believe it could be changed. And as you know, anybody could go online. You could look up the places. It's where I'm up here in Colonial Kingston, New York. The Franz Rogan House, 1750.
Mm-hmm.
The Dr. Jensen House, 1763. The Academy, 1774. They're on the most historic corner in the United States. The only place where there's a stone building that predates the Revolutionary War. The Senate House is over here. From the 1600s, where the part of the Constitution was written here. This is the first capital of New York. And I believe if this is the roots where the first American Revolution had its beginning, why not start the second one? And that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm working for. But again, not a bloody revolution. That's a lot of macho, stupid stuff. That doesn't get you nowhere.
Yeah, dumb as it gets you dead is what it gets you.
It gets you dead. You need a movement, not a protest. And protest, you see what happens with protests. Remember the Arab Spring? Yeah, people protested. Here's the new boss, same as the old boss. You need a movement. And the movement has to be defined, and the people have to be behind it.
And it has to be protected, Gerald. It's got to be protected from those who would seek to subvert it.
You have to keep it out of the hands of the mafia, the political mafia, the Republicans and the Democrats. It has to be totally independent. And again, you look at what goes on in Switzerland. You don't know who the damn president is. You don't know anybody because the people vote on the issues. Let the people vote. Direct democracy. If we could bank online, we could vote online, and then people say, oh my God, you'd have the masses, the anger of the masses. Or the mob would, what do you think you got now? Mob rule, the mob's rule. 535 of them, that's the mob. The Republican and Democrats, congressmen and senators.
Well, if they succeed in implementing internet online voting, goodbye. Got to have paper ballots, public open counting of them. It's the only way to do it. Anything electronic.
Well, they're not going to. They're not going to do that. But I believe with online voting, if it's made totally transparent, and you have every geek in the country looking at this thing going down, and you have algorithms there that keep it real. I know guys that are using algorithms to trade stock, and they're making millions. If they could do that, we could do it on this.
Well, the nice thing about what you're saying, and we've all seen this, I've seen it, is that, let's just take the Boston bombing. Look how many people, now some of them were bogus, of course, and they went way too far with their conspiracy theories, but look how many people got the footage, the available clips, the available stills, and they went through it with a high-powered microscope, basically, and looked at every little nuance and change it, and came up with some theories that were very interesting. Some of them were a little bit nuts, but they were people doing what people need to do to have any chance at all, and that's to take the situation into their own hands and do the damn legwork. And they did it with a lot of gusto and glee, frankly. They had a ball doing it. This was a very interesting phenomenon.
And most people most people don't want war. Most people don't want strife and aggravation.
Of course not.
They want it nice. And it could be a better country. We have to stop these foreign entanglements. We have to go back to the basis upon which the founding fathers put this country together with.
George Washington, he knew. They all knew.
And now we have these clowns changing the game. They're telling the founding fathers to go, F themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, who are these people that they should be so degrading of what we built up here? And the other point that I wanted to make about the Boston massacre is that they implemented Obama's National Defense Authorization Act.
He sure did.
And in which he signed on New Year's Eve in 2011 that repealed the Posse Comitatus Act of 1678 that prevented the military from taking on police duties. And we saw it. And by the way, you go back to the winter 2012 Trends Journal, we wrote about Battlefield America and how we would be losing our habeas corpus rights, we'd be losing our 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendment rights, and you saw them raped with the Boston tragedy.
Yeah, the other side of that coin is military and police. The line between them is rapidly disintegrating. The cops just love to play soldier now. They got their armored cars. They got their high-powered, fully automatic weapons. They got everything they could have. Flashbangs. I'll bet they have RPGs in their armories they're not talking about. They love it. So you got cops now that are playing soldier boy. And many of them, as you said, Gerald, and rightly so, not all of them. There's some men and women who are in law enforcement who are doing wonderful work and they're trying their best. But a lot of these guys are overweight. They're pigs. And they're mean. And they're psychologically troubled. And all of you folks listening know that. Look at the stories on my site. Look at some of the stuff at Trends Research. This is a bad situation. We've got to do something about our police force to try to bring them back into line too, Gerald.
Yeah, we have a good one over here in Kingston. They don't bother the people. They only go after the bad stuff.
Right.
The way it should be. They know what bad is, and they leave good alone.
There you go. Thank you, my friend. Good to talk to you as always.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Jeff.
Okay, be well.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Gerald Celente and trendsresearch.com. All right, that's hour one. Here, we'll be right back. 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 Here, we'll be right back.